many of you have been following the task force. We've talked about nature-based solutions from time to time because, they are certainly an engineering approach, and they will probably be sensitive to changes in weather and climate extremes, depending on the location. So we've asked Emily Corwin, who chairs the ASCE Task Force on Nature-based Solutions, to give us an update. And with that, Emily, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Hi, all. Thanks for having me here this morning. Looking forward to talking with you about what we've been up to as part of the ASCE Nature-based Solutions Task Force. My name is Emily Corwin. I'm a water resources engineer and the interim executive director at the San Francisco Estuary Institute, which is a nonprofit that's based in the California and works primarily in the San Francisco Bay and Delta area. So just as level setting for all of us, I'll quickly kind of talk about what nature-based solutions are. And I love this figure. It's from a paper from 2023 from one of the members of our task force, a paper that he put together, Kyle McKay. And just thinking about how we've been trending towards more and more combining projects that achieve infrastructure and conservation objectives, starting before the 1970s and just moving forward, we're expecting to see more and more of this integration. And this is, maybe many of you have seen kind of thinking about infrastructure as being on a spectrum from the purely gray solutions to purely green solutions. And this is just another way of representing that, and different ways that we can kind of create blended or hybrid solutions along this spectrum. So there's, formal definitions of nature-based solutions. I won't read this. I'll share my presentation with you all after, but from the UN Environment Program, for example. And then there's more kind of informal definitions of nature-based solutions, but really looking at projects that are performing infrastructure services, consist at least partly of natural or living materials, provide environmental and social benefits beyond our typical purposes, and enhance resilience through some amount of self-adjustment or self-organization. And ASCE has been working on integrating or developing kind of a nature-based solutions portfolio for a number of years. I know I've been involved since about 2020. And even just the code of ethics points to some of what we want to achieve with nature-based solutions in terms of engineers working to create safe, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure. This is the highlighted text here. And as the engineering community, that we're considering current and anticipated needs of society. In 2024, the board of the ASCE board adopted a policy statement for nature-based solutions. Really proud of this and of the society of creating this policy statement. And I often quote this definition of nature-based solutions, where we're aligning natural and engineering processes to deliver infrastructure that provides economic, environmental, and social benefits. So let's see if I can, I have a bunch of links I think I have queued up here, including, so hopefully those just hit the chat, a link to that policy statement so you can go and check it out. And so ASCE is working towards, and with the task force, developing a nature-based solutions manual of practice. And kind of why we're doing this really started, from my perspective, in 2023 as a part of the Inspire conference. There was a nature-based solutions workshop that really brought together many of the institutes across ASCE. And as a part of that, there were different activities that the participants participated in. And one of them was prioritizing potential initiatives that ASCE could do towards developing more engineering resources for nature-based solutions. And they're kind of ordered here, but the top one that participants thought ASCE could really step in and lead was on developing a manual practice. And then kind of going down from that is second is a monitoring database. And I'll talk more about maybe an early idea for that towards the end of the presentation. And just to say that, that was, participants in one workshop, but the results really echoed another survey. Kayla Ostro, this is a paper that she prepared. She's also a part of the task force in a survey in 2021, 2022, and really identifying here of what practitioners were hoping or needing to be able to do and bring nature-based solutions more into their work. And the top of the list was engineering design standards by a fair margin. So this is just something that our community is telling us that they want to see more of and that they need to be able to confidently design and build with nature. So, kind of why we need this engineering guidance is this idea of having a standard of care and the associated professional kind of liability that a manual practice can help to support. And kind of recognizing that nature-based solutions is unique and that the design can require more and different trade-offs, and that guidance provides a mechanism to increase adoption. And to both of those kind of charts I just shared, that engineers say a lack of guidance is at least part of what limits the use of nature-based solutions. So the outcome of the workshop was that ASCE would take a leadership role to develop nature-based solutions engineering guidance. And we prepared a summary from the workshop and next steps. And key among those next steps was creating the Nature-based Solutions Task Force, which we created in 2024. And that purpose of the task force is to manage and implement the next steps from the workshop, provide transparency and oversight to the ASCE manual practice process, funding, seek, secure, manage funding to advance the manual practice development, and really reach out to groups like yours, other professional societies who also are working towards or on nature-based solutions topics to develop partnerships or collaborations. And this is just some of the names of the folks who are part of the task force. And just like many of or all of the groups within ASCE, these are volunteers who are passionate about their work and bringing their time and their energy and their expertise to bear. And just so really grateful for all of these folks for being a part of the team. This is from the outcomes of the workshop, the things that we were kind of started with to work on. And so we established the task force. We've done some tagging of content within the ASCE library that's related to nature-based solutions. We've published a paper, which I'll talk about later on developing nature-based solutions engineering resources. Many of you know the National Nature Assessment did pivot from how it was initially envisioned at the time we wrote this, but there were members who contributed to that. And then we've been searching for grant opportunities, though to date, we haven't yet brought in the funding that we need for the manual of practice. So these were kind of what we were able to do up to now as the task force, and just our long-term goals are to be able to ultimately develop this nature-based solutions manual practice, including training on its use. So what we've been doing since 2024 is really envisioning what this manual practice could look like. And the kind of overall pitch here is that this would be ASCE's first ever, I should edit this because we now are calling it a free access nature-based solutions manual of practice. The task force is passionate that the resource, the MOP, once it's developed, will not be behind a paywall. And that's a key part of what we're currently fundraising to be able to support ASCE to be able to make it free access to all. So the goal of this manual practice is to inform the design and construction of infrastructure projects that incorporate nature to reduce the impacts of hazards like those resulting from climate change and extreme weather. And so I'm imagining many of you have seen nature-based solutions or heard the term, and there is absolutely so many different ways that nature-based solutions show up in different landscape settings. And so part of what the task force has agreed on is that we're envisioning this as two parts, where part one is a general guidance for nature-based solutions that can apply to any type of nature-based solution. And once we have that complete, that we will develop technical appendices that will be specific to different types of NBS. So we're starting right now with just the general guidance. In 2025, we piloted this infrastructure sustainable learning model, or ISLE, where I'll just mention a little bit about this ISLE model, where we're trying to bring together, instead of kind of a one-to-one, one consultant to one project kind of output, we brought together a whole group of people to learn from each other to inform many different projects is kind of the model of this ISLE approach. And it's based off of a successful application within the medical field it's called ECHO. And so we were able to get a little bit of grant funding from this ISLE group, particularly led by Liz Losses at Duke, Nicholas Institute for Energy, Environment, and Sustainability, to be able to fund an 11-part series on nature-based solutions that ASCE hosted. And I see Jay's on the call. Jay and Brandy at ASCE were, and also Kyle McKay, were just huge contributors to be able to make this series happen over the last year. So huge thanks to them and to these funders. This is just data from the first 10 sessions. We had almost 600 attendees, 282 active participants. You can kind of see the trend over the year of people showing up and attending. And these were different speakers. Bilal, I think you're on this call, and really huge thanks to them for coming in and sharing their expertise, their perspective. And as a part of each one of the sessions, we engaged all of the attendees to actively contribute to a table of contents for the manual of practice. So some of the takeaways that we heard from the community about this manual of practice is that the audience should be for both beginners and experienced professionals, but that the primary audience should be design engineers, be they in consulting, municipalities, or agencies. But we recognize the cross-disciplinary nature of nature-based solutions is that there is a secondary audience for other design professionals, like landscape architects and biologists. We also talked a lot. One of our sessions was dedicated to this idea of international audiences. And we recognize that ASCE's manuals of practice may not be explicitly for all geographies, but international audiences use them extensively. So kind of developing it with an international, knowing that they will be applied internationally. And we want to design the manual for adaptability moving forward, and really create a system that embraces versioning versus decadal updates. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then optimize the free access to the content. We kind of conceived of the manual as being modular, where each part can stand on its own while drawing attention to the critical overarching elements. We heard from participants, they really want us to prioritize engineering aspects of nature-based solutions like definitions, tools, and templates and design guidance. We had a session dedicated to community engagement in nature-based solutions and agreed that we would have a community engagement as a standalone chapter, given its relevance to the design process. And then I think this is the last one about adaptive management, and that should be integrated throughout the guidance versus as a standalone chapter. And I think I put in a link into the chat that will take you to the latest draft of the outline, but this is what we shared with the community as part of the last session of the aisle. So kind of 10 different chapters. I won't go into detail here, but welcome you to comment and add your thoughts to the document that I shared in the chat. And one thing the community agreed that we do not want to be in the manual practice is just a list of different NBS, that these aren't technical guidelines for a specific type of feature. That's really, we're looking to the part 2 technical appendices to cover that. And that we won't be making changes to existing guidance on any general topics like cost benefit analyses or cost engineering. We do expect that there will be notes about how these are different for NBS. We also worked on identifying the key roles to move forward with the manual practice and what the kind of description of each one of those roles is. So we have our task force that's existing. We have created, Brian Parsons is on the call, our EWRI technical committee. Am I getting that right, Brian? Is our executive committee.
You're right. They're responsible for making certain that we develop the manual of practice consistent with ASCE rules and that the Blue Ribbon panel review is conducted independently and responded to as well.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. We have received applications to editors. A team of 3 editors is being recommended to the executive committee for approval currently. We have we put out a call for applications for both the editor, project manager, and Blue Ribbon panel. We received 94 applications of some incredibly talented people in the field. So we're just really grateful for the interest and the willingness to contribute to this effort that we're seeing already from our community. So we're still working on selection of the editor, project manager, and Blue Ribbon panel positions. Brian, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, it's a very democratic, very transparent process. So we're committed to this approach for this MOP. So.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Brian. And once we have the editors selected specifically, we'll also be working with the task force to develop the next version of the manual practice outline, which we'll submit to the Blue Ribbon panel for review. Once the Blue Ribbon panel has kind of reviewed and approved the outline, we'll move forward with selecting chapter leads and authors. All right, so how am I doing on time? I think so. One of the things that Dan mentioned this group is interested in is kind of thinking about cross collaboration related to data needs. And one of the things that we've observed with engineering guidance related to nature-based solutions is that we have information about nature-based solutions that exist in different formats. So kind of thinking about it as a spectrum, formal standards adopted by independent bodies, we have agency guidance, we have professional guidance documents, we have peer-reviewed literature, we have informal guidance. And with the ASCE Natural and Nature-based Features Committee, another group within ASCE that's involved with nature-based solutions, but is embedded within EWRI, is we published this paper earlier this year, and it's part of ASCE Open on nature-based solutions, design standards, past, present, and future. And we kind of looked at that spectrum and adapted an ASCE pyramid of thinking about how you build up this from informal guidance at the base where you have a lot of it, potentially, and then you move up into having more peer-reviewed guidance, professional guidance documents, and then the most prescripted and widely adopted and the kind of longest to get to are these formal standards. And we had some examples that we collected for each one of those. So kind of our group, the author team on this paper really saw that the challenge isn't a lack of knowledge. It's that right now, this guidance is scattered. It's scattered across case studies, state manuals, academic research, project reports, and internal documentation. And so we proposed and kind of put out this call for an open platform to centralize engineering data from real projects, to be able to standardize monitoring and performance metrics, and accelerate the creation of nature-based solutions specific guidance. Really with the goal of bridging this gap between innovation and practical implementation, so that we can scale nature-based solutions with rigor, transparency, and confidence. And essentially just looking at this as a model, this natural infrastructure engineering hub, as a way to more efficiently learn by doing. So other things that are in development, we've had early conversations with the ASCE publications team. I mentioned our need to fundraise about $250K to ensure that the manual practice is free access. One of the things I'm particularly excited about and really grateful to ASCE for their willingness to potentially pilot this is to use the Amplify model or platform for the manual practice. Currently, Amplify is only used for standards, but one of the things that this would allow us the ability to do is kind of have more of that modularity and the more quickly be able to update the manual practice than if it were a static PDF. And particularly that Amplify platform would allow us to have a versioning system with patches, which can happen very quickly, minor revisions, which can happen frequently or as needed, and then these major revisions that can happen as needed. And really thinking about producing, PDF kind of final, if you will, documents as part of the major revisions. So that's all I have, and would just absolutely welcome any suggestions on any of this, truly, and any connections that you see, and opportunities to collaborate on either the data, kind of this data vision of how we more efficiently learn by doing, fundraising, or like I said, any of the above, and just really appreciate the time. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Emily. As somebody that's been watching this from the sidelines for quite some time, I'm impressed with how much you've accomplished and where we are in the process. So with that, we have questions or comments from anyone. We're very chatty on these calls, so feel free to just raise your hand, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, I have a couple questions. So Emily, I am curious, can you go over a little bit the relationship between, I think you referred to it as volume 1 and volume 2. What's the demarcation there, and what, can you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so So we're called part one and part two.
Part
So
one, sorry.
part
Okay.
one is meant to be applicable to any type of nature-based solution. So some of the things that might get in, or we expect it to get into, are performance-based design, kind of adaptive process, um, adaptive management of nature-based solutions. We will have case studies that we expect to highlight that will focus on specific types of nature-based solutions. But our goal is that this is really something that, if whether or not you're working in the coastal space or the urban setting, that this is going to be a resource for practitioners to assist them to design and build with nature. And then part two would be more focused. So, for example, here in the San Francisco Bay, we have a set of tools we've been developing called horizontal levees. And they're really levees that take tertiary treated wastewater and move that tertiary treated wastewater through a planted levee and then blend it down into the marshlands around the bay. And so that could be a type of technical appendix that we create as design guidance for how to design and build these horizontal levees. So very specific in terms of a specific type of nature-based solution application.
So it sounds like part one kind of sets a framework, and then you can add that's the modular piece. Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds great. Because all of
yeah,
those different communities are going to be at different pace in terms of
right,
being able to
exactly,
develop something. Excellent.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I got Bilal and then Jeanette.
Yes, I mean, first of all, thank you so much, Emily, for the
Oh,
presentation and being here. I mean, I do remember when you had the workshop at the ASCE Inspire conference, and I'm glad to see such great progress. Congratulations to you and the team. We just as background, and you might know this, is for the benefit of everybody. At one point, we were almost got some funding from
mhm,
the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and then it was discontinued or terminated with the new administration and so on. And the focus was on international work. And I was wondering to what extent
mhm,
you are going to have international coverage in this regard. And
mhm,
what I've found, at least based on that brief engagement, is that the culture varies all over the place. The
mhm,
way people relate or work with nature. In fact, we do have a small task at the present at the University of Maryland with Stevens Institute of Technology
mhm,
that's funded by the Japan-US Foundation on nature-based solutions. And the focus is on the relationship between society and nature. And we are comparing the relationship of the US to nature versus Japan to nature, and there is drastic
mhm,
difference. So to what extent in the composition of the group there will be, maybe international representation? This could be something of the for the future, but I
Yeah.
just want to, make note of it here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bilal. I know, great question. And just as a side note, I used to work at Conservation International and
Oh,
work
okay.
with teams around the world on mostly shoreline-based green gray infrastructure. And so definitely equally have observed many different kind of approaches to working with nature. And we are, as a part of our initial review of the candidates for the Blue Ribbon panel specifically, we are kind of trying to have some international representation within that. And then, yeah, I would love to take that advice about thinking about our chapter leads and authors as equally representing or having some international perspectives to be able to bring. It depends on who applies to some extent. But so far, we have gotten a handful of excellent international applicants.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
Jeanette, if you can just bear with me I just got a follow up real quick. The ASCE Cold Regions Engineering Division
Yeah.
is very interested in nature-based solutions in cold regions. We had an Arctic workshop on nature-based solutions. do you see cold region engineering fitting into this? Because it is so different than most nature-based solutions. But I know there's an international community that participated in that workshop that would be very interesting. Do you feel like you've got a linkage there? I think you have some crossover with the Cold Regions Engineering Division. If that's true, then we're good. Otherwise, I'll follow up.
Man, I encourage you to continue to ask that question, Dan, because so we have someone who represents the cold region. It's Cold Regions Engineering Division.
Yeah, it's part of CTA. All the bodies like CAC, et cetera, have different names. We don't follow a name convention within the ASCE. What is it now? Center for Technical Advancement.
Okay, so we have a representative on the task force who representing cold regions. I foresee that the general guidance would be applicable to cold regions and kind of the application there. It'd be great if we could do a case study on kind of a cold region application of nature-based solutions within that general guidance. I think that could be eye-opening for a lot of people. And then perhaps where it could really show up is in the technical appendices. If there's a specific type of nature-based solution that has a component that is specific to the cold regions, I think that would be a great place to highlight that.
All right.
Can I just comment quickly on
please,
that?
Brian. Go ahead.
Jay Snyder, of course, is also a part of our community in terms of the staff side, and he is connected with the Cold Regions Engineering Division. And the real thought that we have on the staff side is that the part two, if you will, would be the place where we might have a plugin upgradable on the Amplify platform from the Cold Regions Division.
But I think a case study would be great just to kind of get your toe in the door, so to speak. All right. I'm sorry, Jeanette?
Mine is just small. It was an update on the Amplify platform. We have moved to hosting our MLPs there already. So we do have like Bilal's Climate Resilient Infrastructure MLP is up there and some other ones. So that is doable.
Although I think Ruth Ann Hawker has discovered that it's only chapter 1. I'm not sure if that's accurate, Ruth. So there's a lot of progress that still has to be made.
Depends on your subscription because I can see all the chapters of that particular one. So we can follow up on that online and provide more information, but Publications has been working on putting more and more information in the Amplify platform.
Awesome. Yeah, if that was a link you could share, I would happily share that out also with the task force.
It's not free, right?
Not free.
That is the tricky part.
Yes, yes, that is the tricky part.
All right.
One of.
That's good. Jay, last word?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I just wanted to follow up Brian Parsons' comment regarding me being the staff contact, for CRED or the Cold Regions Engineering Division. Emily, I'm pretty sure it's Greg Kinney from Cold Regions that is our person on the NbS Task Force. And I will add that Greg Kinney is also on XCOM for CRED, so we have that angle as well.
Well, and as everybody knows that joins these regularly, we post these presentations and Q&A to the ASCE NOAA YouTube channel that was established by the University of Maryland through Bilal's efforts. And so, we'll be sharing this with multiple ASCE committees too. So you'll get some more visibility that way. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. That's great.
Sorry, Dan. I just had a quick thing for Emily, and that is some NOAA connections on nature-based solutions. So I just loved your presentation. It was excellent. There's so much material there. And there's a bunch of people in NOAA that have been thinking about nature-based solutions, primarily in the Office of Coastal Management. And so those would be... I know there's a person out near you, formerly NOAA, and she would be able to help you a lot. Her name's Becky Smythe.
I saw her yesterday. Okay,
awesome. Yeah. Okay,
right.
fantastic.
And the other thing I'll mention too, Alan, just so you know, is like I've been having conversations with Jamie Carter up here in Portland, Maine, there's a number of NOAA people that want to see this. They have a major conflict today, otherwise they'd be here live. So they're already looking forward to getting the recording. So great minds think alike, Ellen.
Yay.